Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Born to be a Snow Fighter podcast, the story of the Metal Pless family. I'm your host, Nick, along with my co-host here, Bob, and today we have a good guest. We have Jason Whittemore, Executive Vice President at Metal Pless, and we're going to talk about the early days. Jason was there long before any of us. He saw the birth, how Metal Pless was born in the United States and other areas. And we're going to get to know Jason a little bit and talk about his background. So, Jason, welcome to the Born to be a Snow Fighter podcast.
Hey, thanks, Nick. Thanks, Bob. Thanks for having me.
So, Jason, explain your role today at Metal Pless and how long you've been with Metal Pless. Let's start with that.
So today, Executive Vice President, I manage the airports around the world as well as our European division, EuroPless. That's kind of what keeps me busy every day. The history, been around Metal Pless for 15 years. Started back then just as a salesman. I was actually the very first full-time salesman that Metal Pless ever hired. They did have some part-time salespeople, but I was the very first full-time salesperson. And my job was, in the very beginning, was to grow outside of Quebec, because Metal Pless was very well concentrated in Quebec, very dominant, but yet very small outside. So that's what I started doing, and I started with Ontario.
So that's a challenge, right? So I've been in the snow equipment industry for about, I would say, 12 years, and I do come across lots of brands in Quebec, but it's a challenge to expand them outside of Quebec. So it's a bit of a different culture, a different world in Quebec, right? So expanding, there's a lot of snow brands that stay in Quebec. It is a challenge to move into English Canada and United States, is it not?
It is. And also the fact that we are very different. We did have technologies that just weren't available outside of Quebec. The market is very different. Quebec is a territory that's progressed very well in the snow removal industry, often years ahead of others as far as technologies and operations. So going to Ontario and presenting our products, it required a lot of tenacity.
Jason, in the beginning, I mean, because I've run into it out west, like I'm talking out west Alberta and whatnot. You get a little bit of we don't want to buy from Quebec because they're Quebecers and it's French and they're the Frenchies and we're the English. Did you run into that because I mean, you've got two halves. You got Anglo Ontario and Franco Ontario. When you got further west, did you ever run into that block? Like, I'm not going to buy from you guys because you're from Quebec.
I mean, yes, it happened at first, of course. There was a lot of, not a lot, but there was some who just were hesitant to deal with the Quebec company. I've heard French frogs, Frenchies, I've heard it all.
Mm-hmm.
But as much as the majority were very welcoming and happy to see me and willing to discuss. Yes, they were also very cautious dealing with the Quebec company just because of the language barriers and the different culture. But that's where it required a lot of work on my side to make sure that I was their contact. You needed anything, it was me. So from parts, service, repairs, everything went through me. So that really helped to create some trust and really helped to grow Metal Pless outside of Quebec.
So I got a question for you now. You came from you came from out of the industry into snow. You didn't have a huge mechanical background. I mean, your wife's family are farmers, so you were exposed to that a little bit, but it wasn't your upbringing. And now, I mean, you trained me on all the technical service stuff, Metal Pless related. You helped out Yannick get to where he is. How was that for you in the beginning? Like, what's a diverter? Like all these things that Jimmy brought in to make.
Yeah, how did you figure this out? Because when I first started at Metal Pless, I first got to know you, I figured that you were one of the engineers that designed the product, because whenever there was a technical question, you could explain what was going on. Yeah, explain how you got involved with that. Like, how did that happen? Was it by necessity, or are you generally interested in the design of everything?
By necessity, and I had a great teacher, Jimmy. So yeah, I was actually a life insurance salesman prior to Metal Pless. So I had zero knowledge of hydraulics and mechanics. Last time I tried to do an oil change, back when I was in my 20s, it cost me a radiator. Uh, so I am not a mechanic. I knew nothing, but I had to learn, and I had Jimmy being the best teacher, and I do have a photographic memory. So whenever he would explain something, I see it in my mind. I was able to take it apart in my mind. So I always said I can basically do anything, fix anything on a blade, repair it, as long as my hands don't touch it. I'll give the knowledge and let someone else do it.
And that's funny.
So it was basically whenever, from right day one, hydraulic wing. What's a hydraulic wing? So you had to teach me that. It goes on the side, it opens, it's got an axis. Okay, the cylinder, and Jimmy would draw pictures and show me how everything, right down to the little components. So I had it all in my mind. So I had an encyclopedia of the Metal Pless blade built in my mind. So I was able to, whenever there was a service or a problem, I was able to easily find it. But don't ask me to go weld anything. I can't do that.
But this is important, though, because being on the dealer side for many, many years, 20 plus years, 10 years selling snow equipment, having a contact that can answer all the questions is super critical. So I do, like, honestly, if that hadn't have been a one-person operation back in the day, I don't know that Metal Plus expands the way it does. So when I first initially started working with Quebec brands at RDO, my John Deere dealer, it was critical that someone could answer questions with minimum delay, with minimum problems in English. So I would say that I dealt with lots of the Quebec brands because, we didn't have pushback on a new technology, but we had pushback on the day-to-day operations. How are we going to communicate with these folks? How are they going to get us parts? How are they going to explain parts? What's the parts ordering process? Where's the parts diagrams? If I would say that when I dealt with a brand, the one that could help my problems, and those aren't necessarily sales problems, they're majority parts and service and, accounting problems. Those are the brands that stick around when you're dealing from Quebec to the United States. So you were that cog, and explain what you did at the beginning when you were brought on at Metal Pless. You were in sales. Were you just told, hit the road, we need this other places, or was that your idea? Did you see something and go, this is genius, we gotta make this a thing in other areas of the world? What was your motivation at the beginning?
It was hit the road. I mean, but it was funny how it all started too. So what I was actually, again, I was in life insurance. I was trying to sell Jimmy life insurance. That's
so
how
for
this all
those
started.
we talk about Jimmy all the time, and for
He's
those
the
who are listening who
president,
don't know, Jimmy is the owner, the president of Metal Plus. He's the designer, the mastermind
His
behind
dad
the
founded
product.
Metal Pless.
Yep.
Luke. Jimmy took over from Luke, and so I was trying to sell Jimmy life insurance, basically. And I'd have a meeting, and I was able to present something, and I'd go back a week later. He'd say no. I'd offer something else, and then he'd say, "Well, give me a price." I'd come back a week later. He'd say no, give me a price. After 3-4 meetings, he says, "Dude," he says, "I can't say no to you. Whatever I say no, you always have something to back it up with." So he says, "I'll give you a job," and
I
and
don't
back
want the life insurance, but I'll hire you.
so I just said no right off the bat. I was not interested in the job. I was happy in life insurance. I was going to do my career there. And 2 years later, it was actually 2 years. I wanted to grow in the company. And anyway, there was some blockades in the life insurance. So I went back to see Jimmy, and I knocked on his door, and I said, "Hey, you offered me a job 2 years ago, still available." And at this point, he was slowly growing in Ontario, a few blades here and there. There's like 3-4 dealers that would buy from Metal Pless back in those days. And so it's like, how can we grow it to be a copy of Quebec, get the volume that we get in Quebec out in Ontario. So he says, you speak English, you're able to go. So take your car and drive down on Monday, go to the GTA, knock on doors and come back on Friday. So that's what I did for 4 or 5 years. Literally Monday, take off in the morning, 7 a.m., get in my car, drive down 7 hours. By 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you hit our first couple customers, sleep in a hotel. Tuesday, you see some others. Wednesday, Thursday, head back home Friday. I did that for 4 years. And a big shout out possibly to our very first dealers in Ontario. Even before I started, you had Stewart's Equipment, who was a very good advocate of Metal Pless products. Total Rentals with Jeff Erkland's there. There was Connect Equipment. So we had some really good dealers in the very beginning who did sell our green tractors. So I had a little base to start off on. So basically, I went to see all those people, and I asked every one of those salespeople, "Can we go see your customers?" So we'd get in the car and go see their customers, and then I'd ask questions and find out, and what you know. Do you know anyone else that could use this? Are you looking for more? And then from there, as I would drive, if I'd see a dealer, I'd just stop in and say, "Hey, I'm Jason from Metal Pless. Do you know who we are?" And most of them did not. So we had to start somewhere. But
So these were the days, before social media was really a thing, and a Metal Plus user could post a video and a million people could see it really quick. So Metal Plus was growing slowly, naturally, and was already established in Quebec. Since you're an employee, I don't know what number you are, but you're way back as far as anybody else on the sales team. There was an established market in Quebec, and it was growing, and people knew what it was, but it wasn't being promoted, right? Was Metal Plus going to any trade shows? People would just happen upon it and say, "Hey, I should get one of these," but there wasn't a lot of marketing, is what I'm saying.
no, there was not. It was before social media. So, well, I mean, that being said, I don't know when Facebook was founded, but it was just not as popular as today. So keep in mind, when I first started, how do I market this? I had a pickup truck, and I put a little mini blade on the back of the truck, and I would drive with that and just go show people, open the back door of the truck and take the hydraulic wing, and I would move it left and right and see what a hydraulic wing is, because people didn't comprehend. It was just new. It was different.
So you
yeah,
were out there on the road spreading the good news of the hydraulic wing. So
that's how it
was
started.
that the first product you were out there promoting, or were you
Yeah.
promoting live boxes?
No, Livebox was not started just yet at that time.
Okay.
Hydraulic wing. There was two things that I would show whenever I would go to a dealer. I would convince them to walk outside to show them my product. Right. That was
This is not easy, because having grown up in a dealership and worked in a dealership for 20 something years, when a random salesman comes in, especially if they don't have an appointment, and they say they want to show you something, like, dealership life is busy. Like, oh, I got to be dragged out to the parking lot. Oh, this is better be really cool, because I don't want to do this. So I
It
can
was a
imagine it
challenge.
wasn't easy.
It was a challenge.
Yeah.
I had a very good success rate. I guess I was very convincing to be able to get people, or you got to smile and do pretty eyes. Who knows? But I was able to get them outside, open the tailgate, move the wing. That was the number one thing I would do, which would then they'd look at it like, well, what is that? Like, it didn't make sense to them. It was too much. The second thing was the paint. Back in those days, we were the only ones to do baked powder paint. Nobody did baked powder paint. We were the only ones. So I would take my keys and I would scratch the blade, right? And I would show them, look, even scratched, the paint is resistant, right? It's not like liquid paint. So those were the two things that I would work on to start convincing people. But yeah.
So this was the hydraulic blade, and Metal Plus, the originator of the hydraulic blade. What were people saying when you showed up and you showed this complicated blade? What was the initial reaction?
There was two types of reactions. There was the wow, like this is going to kick ass. This is going to be awesome. This is going to be very efficient, very productive compared to just your regular pushers or even buckets at that time.
Yeah.
And then you had the other people who'd look at it like, oh, it's going to tear apart. That wing is going to break off in the first night. And they'd say, you got to make this bigger, make that stronger, change this, change that. And I'd be like, well, we've never ripped off a wing yet, so I guess we're okay. It won't work. So it was a bit of both.
Yeah, I always find that interesting, because when I first started selling hydraulic wings and other Metal Plus product, they would, the initial reaction was, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. But when I would tell people, no, it has worked in Quebec for the last 10 years, you just haven't seen it.
Mm-hmm.
That was sort of the same thing you were going against, because in Quebec, they were using our hydraulic wing. It just needed to, people just needed to see, right?
Correct.
And Jason, you lived this more than I did, but I started in 2019 at trade shows, and it was at the tail end of the whole too many moving parts thing. So trade shows, I think people were just saying it because they had nothing else negative to say about the plow, because it was and is the best plow on the market. But it was like, oh yeah, there's too many moving parts, blah, blah, blah. Now in 2025, nobody says that anymore.
No.
Yeah, that is
and-
weird.
And I remember the very first trade shows we did, especially in the US, because keep in mind that, again, Quebec, there's a lot of manufacturers. You do a trade show, you go on a trade show floor, there's 5, 6, 7, 8 manufacturers. That's very common in Quebec. Go to Ontario, there was 1 or 2. I mean, there's another manufacturer in Ontario, and there was us, right? That was kind of it. That's all you saw. Go to the US, there's 4 or 5 of them, but nobody did hydraulic wings. So it was for us to come in with the very first trade show I did. I think it was in Minneapolis. I can't recall. It was in 2011 or 12, whatever.
Could have been
And
Northern Green Expo.
I believe it was a Sima that I did, the very
Okay.
first one. Anyways, and it was an Agramax on a Kubota tractor. And people were looking at it. It was just out of this world because everybody just had pushers or that combination of a pusher that has a straight blade that clips onto a pusher, or like that was it. So everybody would come into, and of course try to talk bad of our product, right? Too many moving parts. That won't work. That'll
Yeah.
never work. Too many moving parts, And it's funny because today, as you said, Bob, you walk a trade show floor, well, everybody copied Metal Pless. I mean, it's all the version of a Metal Pless somewhere. So it changed.
Yeah. So, yeah, like it says on my hat, innovation starts here, which is something we've been talking about for the last 2 years because, yeah, I would say the shift has happened even in the last 5 years where the pushback was too many moving parts. Well, then it became the standard of the industry to have the efficiency of a wing blade. Then there was a little lull where no one said no too many moving parts. Then everybody just started making a wing blade. So they're like, oh, yeah, well, it's okay now. It's okay.
Now it's okay.
Can't beat them, join them.
Yeah, it's okay. But so in the early days in the hydraulic wings, do you remember the first hydraulic wing that you sold in Ontario, or do you remember a particular story about the early days when someone was just blown away, or it was a huge success for the dealer and it led to more and more sales? Like,
well, I mean, I don't remember the very first one, right? There's many, but one that was very interesting and that we worked a lot with and became very popular on social media was Tom from the Dirt Ninja. Everybody,
Yeah.
A lot of people have heard of the Dirt Ninja. So Tom reached out to us wanting a blade, and I had no idea who Tom was back in those days. So met up with Tom, great guy, absolutely great guy. He's beautiful family today, Tom. He's got, and anyways, he wanted a Metal Pless, so we hooked him up with a Metal Pless, and he started doing these videos, and
Yep.
he had a Max Pro 1224 on a Caterpillar
26.
926 or 926 maybe.
So it was
Yeah, I
too
think
small.
that's
It
what
was too small, but he did magical
Yeah,
things with
exactly.
it.
It was for us too small,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
he made it work. So Tom is such an awesome operator. He made that thing work like you wouldn't believe. Now you got to remember, a 1224 back in those days, we didn't have the volume of today, but we might have sold, I don't know, 1 or 2 1224s in Canada, US. It was very little. Then Tom came. Dirt Ninja videos. Next thing you know, we're doing about 50 of these things per year. Everybody wants a 1224 on the same cat loader. Everybody. So
That
Tom really
video.
helped us out a lot with his social media.
That video, I was in the dealership industry, of course, when that came out, and I don't know how many hours I watched those videos. And Tom, shout out to Tom too. He not only made a video, which is now very common, of the GoPro, actually showing operation, but he went through and said, hey, here's how I set it up. Like, it's a basic rocker switch, set of hoses, wiring into the cab wasn't that bad. I think that demystified a lot the whole too many moving parts, because when you look at a Metal Pless blade, it has a fraction of the moving parts of your wheel loader. It's really just a few cylinders, one wiring harness, and one set of hoses. So that, thanks to the Dirt Ninja, things really took off. But it wouldn't have got to that point, and he wouldn't have been able to bring one into the United States if you hadn't started working on getting more product into the U.S. And so we've talked a little bit about Ontario hitting the road. How about in the U.S.? There were blades in the U.S. trickling in, 1 or 2 here and there, and the typical story is someone hears about it or sees it and goes, what do I got to do to get one of those? But working through dealers was the key. Explain the early days in the U.S., maybe your relationship with Paul and how that played a role in it. But it's something that I don't know all the details about.
Yeah, so I'll actually go a little bit further in time if I can, and this is actually before me. So Metal Pless, now we're in the, I'm going to say late 80s. So late 80s, early 90s, Metal Pless was selling the Max Edge and the Pusher Max pushers. So there was two brands of pushers that Metal Pless sold through the Team Storm division. So and
Team Storm. Team Storm. We talk
a
about
lot of
Team
people.
Storm as a real funny, like, oh, what did these things used to be called? Because it wasn't always Metal Pless, right?
No, no, it was, and back then it was Metal Plessis. So because Metal Plessis is a little bit hard to say in English, the Team Storm came around. So Metal Pless was divided, Metal Plessis back in the day was divided in three divisions. You had Team Storm, Team Ag, and Team Track. So your Team Ag was your land levelers, whatnot. Team Track was the tracks on the tractors, which we don't do anymore. We haven't done that in a long, long time.
Yep.
And Team Storm was your snow products. So the two major products for the US back then was the Pusher Max and the Max Edge. So one was a rubber edge, the other one was a steel edge with a trip edge. And there was a lot of those sold in the US, especially on the East Coast. A lot, a lot, a lot. In the 2000s, it slowed down. The sales of those Metal Pless pusher blades slowed down. When I first started, the US, it was like basically one blade a year here and there. It was very, very minimal. So we started slowly growing that. And then came around this gentleman named Paul Vanderzon. So Paul Vanderzon comes to one of our trade shows in Montreal, and Jimmy presents him to me. He says, "Oh, this is Paul. You know, he's like an idol in the snow. And he's the Wayne Gretzky of snow." That's how
The
Jimmy
Wayne
presented.
Gretzky of
The
snow, just
Wayne
a really,
Gretzky of
really
snow.
large Wayne Gretzky of snow. Yeah.
So he said, this is a Wayne Gretzky of snow. And Paul wanted to work for Metal Pless. So we actually did a couple trade shows, him and I, at the very beginning. And then came the SIMA trade show, the first one I went to, the one with the Kubota tractor on with an Agramax 1016. So Jimmy says to me, he says, in private, he says, go with Paul. Go with Paul and find out what this guy's all about. Like, you know, go spy. You know, it was basically what my job was. It was good to go see and like what is all this about? And I mean, I've done a couple trade shows with Paul at that time, which he was very, very professional, very normal. But then you get to SIMA. That's a whole different Paul. So Paul, everybody at SIMA knows Paul.
He's a rock star.
Celebrity Paul.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty Paul. And I mean, so at the second day I'm at the show, there's the awards ceremony, and he's winning the fourth year in a row of being a recruiter. Like, what the heck? What is this? And everybody's cheering, and like everybody, I'm just standing around Paul, right? I know nobody, so I'm just standing around Paul, and he's presenting me to everybody, and like everybody knows the dude. Like, what is this? We go to events, and he's a celebrity. He's like he's able to go in front of others, and people let him go by. Like, what is this? So,
after you, Mr. Vanderzon.
Pretty much. So yeah, that was how it all started. And then Paul was out there on the road and meeting with dealerships as well. A bit like I did in Ontario. So he kind of started that in the US. Brought on some interesting users, a couple of them that became very large customers. One of them that I can recall, he's no longer there today, but he was a very large customer, bought a lot of our units. And that just, of course, got the ball rolling with others and here and there. And dealerships came on board, and here we are today, right?
Yeah. So, Paul, in the U.S., it was different. Earlier, you mentioned that when you brought a Quebec product out west, in Canada, people are like, "Oh, I don't know." It was different in the U.S. because the snow guys that were researching things back in the day, and back in the days only 15 years ago, we knew that the cool stuff was coming from Quebec. So we had no qualms about bringing in Quebec product. We just need to figure out how to do it because most everybody was speaking French. Along comes this guy named Paul who speaks English, who is on all the forums, Neige on snowplow, a plow site or whatever.
Plow site, yeah.
This legend grows. Then there's a story or two in the trade magazines about how he's using, a fleet of inverted tractors operated and maintained by Bob Green here. So he was a celebrity because of how like SIMA was promoting him, and the trade shows, the trade industry publications were promoting him. So he shows up. He wants to be involved with Metal Pless. you must have wanted to take it and run with it. Like, this is our chance, right? So Paul and you are setting up dealers and really growing the brand. You hit gold with the Dirt Ninja video. Yeah, if there's anything else you want to add to how things grew in the United States.
And there were so many great stories. Actually, I'll just come back a little bit. You mentioned earlier about the United States wanting to buy Quebec. That is one thing that, yes, the language could have been a bit of a barrier, but I never had the same pushback in the US as I did in Western Canada or outside of Quebec. You know, the Frenchies, the French, you don't hear that in the US. The average American wanted Quebec products and they knew that, like, that's the one thing I would hear is, you guys know snow. You guys get snow. You understand it. You guys know what you're doing. Like, I would hear that all the time. So, you know, you're trying to sell your product and the guy's telling you, guys know what you're doing. Like, well, yeah, of course I know. Just buy it
That's
now.
about all we know about. That's about all we know. So I'm in Minnesota, North Dakota. That's about all we know about Quebec is you speak French, you make really good snow product.
And there's some
hockey up. There's some hockey up there. You know, there used to be another hockey team, but like no hesitation whatsoever. Just hopefully when we call someplace they answer in English, but if they don't, we can figure it out. Like
yeah. So that's kind of how it started. And then with Paul, you were saying we were going on the road, and Paul and I did so many trade shows. We were a team. We were a great team working together. Boy, oh boy, did we have some fun. I don't recall how many trade shows per year we're doing together at one point. I don't know, 10 maybe. I don't recall. But just traveling everywhere and promoting our product and going on the road together to see the end users, working out little problems when they would happen, which were quite rare. But, you know, being there was important, and we were there. So
I mean, Paul and Jason spent so much time together on the road that they would finish each other's sentences. They could order each other's food. It was awkward being the third person, like through as a crowd.
They
would sit together. They would sit together on one side. I would sit on the other. The waitresses would always think, are these guys married? Like,
no, that's the same thing. When I started it, like, I knew both of them individually because they both came to see me at RDO. But when I started at Metal Pless, my first trade show was GIE or Equip Expo in 2021, and we rented an Airbnb outside of Louisville. And I show up, the House of the Mouse. That's a story for another time. But I show up, and Paul and Jason are interacting like, are the shirts ironed? Yep, I got that done. Like, it's like this team, like, they've obviously been out on the road doing this because it's working seamlessly and they're getting along. And that energy obviously was a key contributor to Metal Pless growing, because when it comes to trade shows, that can't be overlooked, because even to this day, even though you could see a Metal Pless video, thousands of them right now on your phone or computer, early days especially, people, and now too, they walk up to a trade show, they go, so this is what they look like. And they touch it and they go, oh man, I've wanted one of these for years, but like I needed to see it. So some people will buy just based off the videos or you know, word of mouth, but some people got to see it. So you were out there pounding the road doing the trade shows, and that was a key contributor to it. So Metal Pless has always had a history of contributing and participating in trade shows. So let's talk a little bit about where Metal Pless is sort of going today, and maybe your role now, because while we're on the topic of trade shows, if we do a lawnmower trade show, or one that's more geared toward the mowing industry, where not everybody that walks by knows what a Metal Pless is, or what a snowplow even really looks like, the first thing they say is, wow, you must do airports with these. And even if it's an 813, it's a humongous plow compared to what they've seen.
Right.
Explain what you've got going on these days in the airport industry, and Jason, and just give us a little rundown of that.
Yeah. I mean, we've been selling to airports for a long time, and bigger and bigger blades. So the very, very first big blade, the really, really big one, the 2444, the 15,000-pound blade, the very first one went to Quebec City. And that was a request brought in by the operator at Quebec City Airport, who asked us for a 44-foot blade. So Jimmy designed it, and we actually have a bunch of pictures of that very first blade. The whole factory floors outside, standing in front of it and taking a
Oh yeah,
picture.
it's out in the yard. Everybody that worked at Metal Pless stood in front of the plow, and there's
Yep.
still room for
There's
more.
plenty of room. There's still plenty of room. And funny also is when we built that blade and we had to load it on a truck, well, we didn't have sufficient loaders to lift it. It was too heavy for the equipment we currently had. So again, an average blade for us, a big blade was a 1016, right? That was a big blade back then. 813s, 814s. Even Max Pros, we didn't do very many Max Pros back in those days. So having a 2444, we brought our little loaders. We had little Komatsu, a little Deere loaders, like basically the size of a Deere 244, a Cat 908, trying to lift a 15,000-pound blade. So we actually had to bring in 2 other loaders, which were still underpowered. And as we're lifting the blade up, the ass end of the loaders lifting off the ground, it was quite spectacular to see that blade being delivered. Since then, we've had those blades delivered all over the world, from Canada, US, out to recently in Istanbul in Turkey, Geneva, Switzerland,
Iceland.
London in UK, Iceland, everywhere. So we have blades all over the place at airports. It's done through the AeroPless division. So we have the AeroPless division, which is specialized for airports as far as the product goes and the service that is required by the airport business. And yeah, so that's kind of my full-time job right now, just keeping on growing that, kind of trying to duplicate what we did elsewhere, but now with airports, let's get that going everywhere. Combined with that is we have EuroPless, so we have a team. We're 4 people out there, based out of France, and with EuroPless, it's all the European market growing. The Metal Pless side out there, which is a challenge because that's a whole different ball game.
Yeah,
Whole
I
different ball game.
wanted to ask you about that. So you've gone out of Quebec into Ontario, introduced the product to the Ontarians, did the same thing in the US. Now you're doing it. US, Canadian, Quebec cultures are all kind of similar. It's a big melting pot here. Now you're going to Europe where the standards might be different, culture's different. How is that bringing this Quebec-made product and explaining it to, well, we'll start with the French because that's in France, and
Well,
then
I
how
mean,
is that, or the
let's just
trade
start with
shows
the
there?
culture. I mean, imagine how different the culture is in Quebec from Montreal, Quebec City to, let's say, Gatineau. Right there, you have 3 different cultures. Now let's go in Ontario. Now you got a different culture. Go to Western Canada, different culture. The US, a different culture. Now we got all sorts of this big different cultures. But like you said, at one point they do resemble one another, even though people think they're completely different. Like people saying they have different snow, right? They always have a different snow, different cultures. Now you go out to Europe, that's a different culture. That's a very, very different culture. Very different demands, very different requests. Very interesting, lots of fun. I'm not saying that it's bad, not at all. It's wonderful, but you got to adapt to it. You have to adapt to the culture. There's countries that I went to. I mean, we're not used to this, right? We see each other, we give each other a hand. Well, there's other cultures that they want to kiss you on the cheek when they see you and say hello.
Oh, that's a
Nick, how would you like that?
That's
Yeah.
a no-go for me. So when I visited Plessisville at Christmas time and people wanted to do the 2 kiss cheek thing, I was like, oh, do I really have to do this? No, they pulled me in. They pulled me in for it. So if I visited somewhere where that was a regular thing, no good. I'll stick to the U.S.
Nick,
But Jason's talking by men, not just
Exactly.
the women.
Oh yeah.
Exactly.
That's what I'm talking about. That
So when you have a sales manager, a man's, and he's got a wife and kids and everything, but that's their culture. They come and they they kiss you on the cheek, and
Please
it's
don't
insulting if you
transfer
don't
me.
do it, right?
Please
So
don't
naturally
transfer
you
me.
just you go with it. You got to respect it, and I mean, I've seen another country where holding hands is very normal. So men do it, women do it, and not as a couple, just holding hands. So but on day 2 of being with these people and working together, we create a bond, we create trust. And at one point we're outside and he just comes up to me and holds my hand going back into the factory.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep my hands in my pockets now.
What country was that? I want to know. I'll make sure that I keep that one off the list.
But it's also very flattering. I mean, that's because
Yeah.
they trust you. They trust you. They You've become part of them, and that's where I get a lot of appreciation out of it. Yeah, is it out of my comfort zone? Absolutely, but to get that trust in such a short period of time, that says a lot.
Yeah,
It's good
yeah,
people, right?
I can see
So
that. Yeah,
it's nice to
It's
meet
got to
great
be
people like that.
it's got to be sort of an amazing thing to stop and think about it, where this journey of 15 years ago, you're trying to sell Jimmy life insurance, and there's blades in Quebec, and there's blades trickled in through North America in little spots. Now you're standing there in Istanbul or Iceland or
the
wherever
Alps.
going,
Yeah.
the Swiss Alps, and you're like, wow, this has come a long ways. Like
In a short time. In a
yeah.
short time. 15 years isn't very long.
Absolutely. Never would I have thought that back then. I mean, absolutely never. I remember in the very, very beginning, many times in the very beginning, Jimmy and I would chat, and we knew what sales we did last year, and I've always been, my last name being Whitmore, I had a nickname that was said "Want More." Jason wants more, right? So I always want more, and I would throw a number like, "Oh, we're gonna do this," and he's like, "Are you crazy?" And yet today, that's a fraction of. Those numbers are a fraction of what it is today, but it was always about going more and more and more. But even then, never would I have thought that I'd be in Europe, traveling the world and promoting our products everywhere.
Yeah,
Well,
that's amazing.
it speaks to this idea that I tell people all the time is, I don't know of another place on earth in a populated area that's flat and has everything, that has housing, it has retail, it has everything. There's no other place that it snows as much as it does in Quebec, where it's so necessary to move that snow out safely and quickly to keep everyone safe and the wheels turning. In Europe, it's a little bit different. At airports, of course, it's different at bigger stuff. But like in Europe, it's snowing in the mountains. It's a different style of blade a lot. There's not a million people in every town. In Quebec, it's the epicenter. And it's happened to be that a lot of the innovation, if not almost all of the innovation, comes from Quebec. And at the heart of that has been Jimmy, our boss who we work for that is designing this stuff. Jimmy influences the world of snow removal, not just North America. So I think it's so cool that we're out there. An AeroPless plow is just a bigger version of someone's 813 that they're using in Fargo, North Dakota. It is a super amazing thing to think about.
Well, in Quebec, in the U.S., we have the innovation starts here. In Quebec, we're saying we're the world leaders in snow removal innovation now. The world leaders, not North America.
Absolutely, absolutely, and as you said it, the hydraulic wings, live edge. There's so many other things we could name off. And in the airport industry right now, what we're looking at is a product called the Airport Max. So we found a way to uniquely transfer the weight of a blade to your vehicle, yet keeping the quality of the scrape on the ground. Very unique blade, very unique way of working. And we're going to revolutionize the industry, the airport industry, with this blade all around the world now. And again, that's, like you said, comes from Jimmy's mind.
So the same thing applies to the commercial contractor in Minnesota or Ontario or Winnipeg. Scraping clean, moving snow as efficiently as possible. The same principles are key to the airport industry, correct?
And even more so. I mean, the cost related to having a Boeing 737 parked by the gate waiting for it to be cleared of snow, that's phenomenal. I mean, you can't compare that to, your Starbucks not being open. It's a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
So if you're able to get in there and clear that gate, like many airports do that have Metal Pless blades, clear it in minutes versus to, I'm not going to name the airport, but I've seen airports where you're sitting and watching them, and an hour and a half later, they're still working at it. They're not done. They're still working clearing that gate. It's phenomenal. We're no longer in the thousands of dollars. We're in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's absolutely important for the industry to become more and more efficient, more productive.
And there's tremendous growth available, because when people think about airports, they think about the runways, and that's one type of product. But again, just clearing the gates. I was sitting at a major Midwest airport for a few hours during a snow delay this last winter, and I saw them using humongous 844 John Deeres with 20-foot boxes that our own Steve Sapaniak probably welded himself. they're using 10 or 15 844s with 20-foot boxes, just pushing the snow, not back dragging very well. Just use it like, wow. Like even in the clearing of the gates, there is tremendous opportunity for the whole world to be more efficient at snow removal. So it's cool
Absolutely.
that you get to be a part of that.
Yeah.
So we've talked to sort of about where you started, the growth. Are there any other Metal Plus stories from back in the early days that you might want to tell? Because
Oh, there's
like
so
you're way
many.
back there. You're way
There's
back there
so
compared
many.
to everybody else.
Let's go with the funny one here, because you mentioned it earlier and it kind of stuck in my mind. I forgot about it, but borderline embarrassing. But let's have fun
But
here. It's going to include Paul. So him and I, as you said, we worked so well together and had so much fun. I remember we did this trade show. It was in where's Elvis Presley? What's that?
Graceland, Memphis? No?
Memphis. We did
Yeah,
a trade show
okay.
in Memphis, and we're staying at the hotel right there. We're not far from where Elvis Presley's thing. I can't remember the name of the hotel. And we did the trade show. So it's the evening. We had dinner, and there was kind of in the lobby, somebody was singing, playing the piano, and everybody was kind of just sitting down. So Paul and I sit down, order some drinks, and next to us, there's this couple. I'm talking with them, and they were from Canada. They were from Ontario. I can't recall. So we're just chatting. We're chatting. And at one point, I say, they're talking about their kids and whatever. So I say, how long have you guys been together? And a few minutes later, she says to me, she says, how long have you two been together?
Oh, yeah.
But here's the thing.
What a couple.
Here's what I say. 8 years.
Yep.
It never dawned on me. I thought she were going to ask colleagues. And then
Oh,
Paulie's
man.
like, no, Jason, no, we're not. I'm like, no, we're not together. We're just colleagues. But
That's good. Oh boy.
Oh, man, what a relationship. Well, dude, like honestly, that you and Paul, and as we've grown, we've added people like that. That was the key to it growing in the United States, particularly is that relationship that you guys hadn't worked so good together. We wouldn't be where we're at today. Like I say when I go to trade shows and they ask me to say something at a dealer thing, I go, history of Metal Plus just a little bit. Paul and Jason were there laying the groundwork. There was some, they made it possible for our end users who have really grown Metal Plus to run with it. And if you guys weren't there laying the groundwork, it wouldn't have happened. So yeah, thanks to you for where we're at today. Metal Plus definitely has a bright future. We'll never stop innovating. We have stuff lined up for years to come. Yeah. My final question then would be to you, Jason, would be, did Jimmy ever buy life insurance from you?
actually, not at that time, but when after starting, he did. He actually did buy life insurance, but I was already an employee of Metal Pless, but he did.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you didn't get a commission on that one, but you got something
yes,
much
I did.
better. You got...
I was still on for just like borderline, and I needed a couple extra sales, so he helped me out. So
Oh,
I'll just add a little anecdote to this, because when I went for my interview, I went to Metal Pless office. Jason met with me, and then Jason went off to do Jason stuff. I don't know what he. And I was just sitting in the reception. It was a small little reception. There was a displays case of stuff you could buy, some swag and whatnot. And I knew Jimmy, but he didn't know me. And he kept walking by and he kept looking at me at the corner of his eye, walking back, walked by about 10 times. Then at lunch, he goes, I thought you were a salesperson trying to sell me something, so I didn't want to say hi to you. So that's what Jason had to deal with when he first started trying to sell Jimmy life insurance, was that wall of Jimmy, because salespeople come and try to sell stuff all the time, right?
and he so badly did not want to buy anything that when I would arrive, he would purposely make me wait 45 minutes in the lobby. And his door was open. I could see him. He was there.
He's playing video games.
It takes that persistence. Like they say, sometimes it takes 3 times, asking someone for them to say yes. And after you ask them the 3rd time, the percentage goes way up. So I guess that's what we've done. We keep going back to these trade shows. We keep reaching out to people and
meeting new people all the time.
Yeah, and that's still what we do today. Trade shows and connecting. Now trade shows are a little different. It's about connecting with the end users too. So they've shifted a bit, but it's still a very important part of what we do. So let's wrap here. Jason, thank you for giving us a little history about your involvement with Metal Pless. You're still a key cog in the whole big wheel of Metal Pless today. And we look forward to working with you for years to come and growing the Metal Pless brand throughout the world. So
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Bob, for having me. I really appreciate it. And thanks for everyone watching. And we're here for quite a while.
All
Right
right.
on.
So this has been another great episode of the Born to be a Snowfighter podcast, and we look forward to the next one. Thanks, everybody.